UK and elsewhere, and the human rights aspect of this tragedy cannot be ignored by the diplomats in Geneva.
Well, with that in mind, thank you very much for coming in again. It's good to talk to you. I'm going to turn now to Professor David Crane, who's one of the report authors. He studied those images. He joins us from Syracuse University College of Law in New York State. And Professor Crane, thank you so much for joining us today. And could you give us your assessment of the evidence as you see it of abuses taking place in Syria?
Well, I've been following this particular tragedy for 2.5 years as head of the Syrian Accountability Project, where we're putting together a cornerstone for a local, regional, or international prosecutor to build a case against all sides of this horror story that's going on. The report of inquiry that I was a part of and wrote shows further evidence of willful destruction on part of the Assad regime, an industrialized killing machine going on.
Could you help us with, can I put it like this, the integrity or the credibility of this evidence for people who will question it? They'll question the way in which it's emerged. They'll question the timing of its publication. What could you say to that?
Well, we were asked to go in and do two things: to assess the credibility of the individual and assess the credibility scientifically and forensically of the evidence which he brought out. That was our charter, and that's what we did. But we came into this inquiry open-minded, in fact skeptical. You have to understand, and the listeners need to understand this, this team has decades worth of experience of prosecuting at the international level. The individuals involved in the inquiry from the legal side prosecuted 2 heads of state recently. We also had a very important forensic team put together, and I think it's really, really important. As we went into this, we had 2 phases. Phase 1 was to just get an initial assessment of the source, his handler, and then a scientific assessment of the photographs. We did that. We met, we looked each other in the eye and said, what do we have? And our plan was, if it was even close, if it was something that was in doubt, then we would have gone back and saying that this is not credible, and we would have ended it. However, after a day and a half, we realized that we have, in some ways, a smoking gun here. And we moved into phase 2, where we began to pick apart, look at, carefully assess the evidence. We had access to 24,000 photographs. We looked at 6,000 of them. And we also did a deep forensic analysis of 150 of them. And what we found is a systematic, widespread and systematic effort by the Assad regime taking detainees from 3 detention facilities after they had been starved, tortured, and then executed, process them through this particular photographic area where they were numbered by the intelligence services, numbered by the forensic team, numbered by the processing team. You see those numbers clearly on the bodies. They were matched with documents that also had the same numbers, and then those reports were reviewed by superiors, stamped and moved into the Assad regime, while the bodies themselves were moved out and disposed of in the countryside. We haven't seen something like this since Nuremberg.
When you're dealing with evidence on that scale, what can you then say to our viewers about levels of responsibility? How easy or how difficult is it to start gauging where the level of responsibility lies within the government or the regime there?
Well, again, I don't want to give a law lecture, but the jurisprudence in this area holds heads of state, their generals, other persons in charge who bear the greatest responsibility, individually criminally responsible through various methodologies by which they can be directly held responsible. And in this case, we have that type of evidence. And we've been gathering that type of evidence over the past 2.5 years. The case against Assad and his regime, and frankly, the case against various resistance organizations who are also committing likewise crimes, is starting to develop. We have the evidence, we have the jurisprudence, we have the procedures, we have the experience to prosecute. But really, at the end of the day, and it's important for your listeners to understand, this is going to be a diplomatic and a political decision. The bright red thread of all of this is politics, not the law. The law is ready. The law is ready to seek justice for the people of Syria.
Professor Crane, it's very good of you to join us. Thank you so much.